Hi, my name's Stephen Roy Gratrix, commonly known as Steve G. Some of you may have seen me already before at meetings and throughout the trust, and I'm here to do a life story. Back to 1994, actually, when I was discharged. So for those people who've seen me now, probably going to call it Steve G the prequel, because there's such a large gap. It's going to be trauma-based, which I think is very important. I was trying to do it linear, but it doesn't work because of such a gap. So I was born in 1956 in July, and there was 2 foot of snow on the Pennines, so perhaps that should have been an omen in the first place. My dad was a very famous international footballer, and my mum was an air hostess, and at the time they were the Posh and Becks of football. We knew a lot of famous people, famous groups, bands. Stanley Matthews, the Beatles, Freddie and the Dreamers, all sorts of people came to the house for dinner. So we mixed in like people would see today in the sporty world and the showbiz world. So I'd end up going round to lots and lots of places, and I do remember at an early age remembering the smell of beer and brown ale in bottles. My dad travelled the world, and you used to be able to collect the little miniatures on the aeroplane. And we had a cabinet at home, and there was 25 in. And when I was 5, for some reason, I drank them all. They called the doctor out, and I was really sick and shouting at my mum saying she's awful and awful for making me sick. I was in the newspapers from 3 months old, and I've been in the papers even up until COVID due to the family name and my dad's experience. I did witness within the sporty life, there was family disputes and physical disputes between my mum and dad, and there's quite a few times I would be ferried out at night to somebody else's house across the street, and then still have to get up to go to school in the morning. Then recollections of drinking. I was at school, went to high school about in Manchester, and I was 11, and I didn't understand why I got told off for having whiskey and water with my dinner. It just seemed a normal thing. But I didn't want anybody to know I smoked, which I thought was strange. Drinking really was right up until I was 36. I ended up being a benefits manager, and it got to the point where I would have to drink to function, and function normally in my eyes, and maintain the legal definitions of benefits and look after the staff. And there'd be nothing wrong with 8 pints at dinner, on lunch. And it got so bad as the years went on, I would have to have half a bottle of vodka or something before I went to work. There was times I couldn't remember. I'd still function, but I couldn't remember 2 weeks out of my life. Then when I was 36, it got so bad that I would be shaking in bed and couldn't move. So my Uncle John in Anglesey was phoned up, who was ex-alcoholic, said you're going to have to give him a good mugful of whatever the strongest spirit you've got and get him to the doctors. When I went to the doctor went, Steve, I've been waiting 2 years for you for this, and because of how you are, I'm going to have to section you straight away. So I ended up in Parkwood on a section. The point there is, before I forget, it's important that people do recognise that people have things wrong with them early enough, and it's good that I was looked at holistically and as an individual, and not as a group or a cohort of people to be looked at on a chart. And it was very, very pleasing that the phrase is, it's never too early to show help and give help and offer help, which is still used today, but I think it really works. I ended up in Parkwood, put everything in a black bag. On my first night, I got in with the wrong crowd and went to the off licence, bought loads of cider, put my fist through the glass on the ward, and unlike today, my things were in a bin bag and was thrown into the car park. Somehow I got back in. I had to be fed for a week because I couldn't hold anything. I was really, really shaking. As time progressed, I received a leaflet on my bed to go to Harvey House, which was 16 a year was allowed to go to Harvey House for the alcohol rehabilitation course. That was a 10-week course, but you didn't go and do 10 weeks and it starts again. You had week 1, week 2, week 3, etc. people on the course, and you could see the difference. During which you had to write down for week 8 your life story. I'd been there in week 2. This lady was giving her feedback on the life story, and it was that one time in my life where tone words, transparency, and truthfulness came out. And she was talking about her dad, and I burst into tears. Now, I'd heard dad, etc., for donkey's years, and I'd seen my dad secretly throughout. He got remarried again and had children. And he said, "Don't let the girls know you exist." I said, "But what happened when you die?" He says, "I'll be in the box at the front and it doesn't matter." Then at Harvey House, it did me head in within the 2 weeks. So I ended up on, I can't remember, section 2, 3, or 5 at Ridgeley. Ridgeley was like Carry On films with all the metal beds in a row. And I went in and I thought, if I just shout why I'm here, nobody's going to keep asking me. So you're not repeating your problem. And when I look back, it must have looked really strange. So I ended up with an injection in one's bottom to go to sleep to calm down. Discharged from Ridgeley back to Parkwood. And at 11 o'clock on the 24th of March 1994, I looked in the mirror and thought, "You've done it. You're different." Now, it's only this week. I'm now involved in the trust. I've been a governor in my second term, and I'm involved in ward accreditations and visits, etc. And recently, I'm involved in the 2-year project for Culture of Care as Lived Experience on Churchill Ward at the Harbour. Then the Culture of Care has shown me that the things I've thought are actually being activated out in the National 2-year Culture of Care project. Yesterday, we did autism. And they have a thing called masking. And masking isn't by choice. Masking is a thing that happens. That then, my penny dropped of how to explain it better, that at 11 o'clock on the 24th of March 1993, when I felt different, that unchosen mask of cover-up from how my life had been, that fell away, and I found out with hindsight that there's the phrase of, I'd lived a lie for 36 years. And that's how I felt. But within doing so, again, with the help of psychiatrists, etc., and psychologists, all the junks disappeared. And I don't have to think through junk anymore. I can get on and be involved specifically with the issues. But the experience of managing, reading documents, legal documents, knowing how people speak has come in very handy for the involvement on different wards and things. And I do hope, or I do know, that when I'm talking to people as a lived experience, the person can tell, like I could tell that special day in 1994, there's something different about you. You're asking from a different aspect. As for trauma, a couple of weeks back, I was moving a fridge for my daughter, rested the fridge on my knee. When I got changed, there was a big bruise on my thigh, and I thought, "Oh, that's from the fridge." So I now explain to people asked about trauma that you spot something, which was the bruise, and you know instantly where it's come from and when. More instantly, if you stub your toe on the bottom of a bed, you know exactly what the trauma is and where it's come from. Mental health trauma could be back to, for example, when I was 5 and those things that happened in the street and the things I saw. Found out at 5 without knowing it that the alcohol covered that sensation up. Meeting all the famous showbiz people where they did, because we went to beauty contests and things with my dad, that those things cover trauma up. So then when you find out you've lived a lie, you've got all those traumas to get through. It's like remembering how many times have I banged my foot, how many times I've got a bruise on my leg, trying to remember where those things are from, because the trauma can be from 10 or 20 years before. That's why I'm very thankful for the help I got at Parkwood, Ridgeley. I'm very pleased to see that the holistic individual views are being used throughout the trust for that irrespective. It's great that the trust is heavily involved in the culture of care programs. And it's good to see that lots of managers do have lived experience.